Hello guys, it's me Slamnook. The library level might be one of the most interesting places in Metro 2033, being the home of the librarian and the archives where we found the D6 bunker files. And in this video, we're gonna go out of bounds and take a look at all the interesting things I've managed to find on this level. So with that, welcome once again to the Metro Out of Bounds series. In case you didn't know yet, I'm not actually using mods to get to these out of bounds places. Everything you see in this video is freely accessible and doesn't require any mods. That does mean though we have to get a bit creative to get outside the map. But so far I have found 4 different ways to do exactly that. The coolest one I found by far though is this one. In the library at the very end of the alley level, instead of walking into the area that loads the next level, you can actually jump over it and get to the next level early. And since it isn't fully loaded in yet, it is possible to get out of bounds just by jumping out the window. If you want to get out of bounds early in the level though, there are still some other ways to do it. For example, this spot, which was the very first one I found and is in my opinion the hardest, requiring you to make multiple jumps to get over an invisible barrier around the level. 2 easier ways to get out of bounds though are this part right outside the metro entrance, where you can actually climb the cracked parts of the wall to get outside. Or you could just use this jump even early in the level to get out. And from here we already come across one of the first out of bounds spots of this map. On the roof of the metro entrance we can find a hidden weapon stash with guns for each weapon slot, like the revolver, shambler and even the VSK-94, plus of course a bunch of different ammo and consumables, including masks and filters. For the reason of the stash being here I am not really sure yet, but I have seen one of these stashes before on a previous level. I also don't think that these items are placeholders, as you can't find any of these guns on the level. Plus, Miller and Daniela we meet at this level are also not using any of these guns. Comment down below if you know what this stash could be for. Next to this stash though, we can already see our next location. The library might be the coolest single building I've gotten to explore in this series so far. And something I never really noticed is just the sheer size of this building. For example, at the back of the library there's this massive office building connected to it, which I somehow never really noticed during my playthroughs. Something I also never noticed was this giant courtyard with some sort of maintenance building inside of it. But while walking around the courtyard a little, it gave off a weird eerie feeling and the whole thing just felt like a liminal space. Another spot that felt very liminal was the tall office building, since the floors inside it felt extremely barren, not to mention that the whole place looked the exact same as in the back rooms. In the office building we can also see some parts of the next level, the Depository, that have already been loaded in, which allows us to explore the level early before ever having to go inside the loading zone for it. Unfortunately, not everything from the next level is loaded in yet, especially all the small props that would be scattered around the level. And some areas are also just completely non-existent or are just completely blocked off. But I have to say it is still cool to be able to explore what is there already. If you go inside the library before entering it with Daniela and Miller, some interesting things start to happen. With one being that most of the assets you would normally see aren't actually loaded in yet, which makes the whole place feel much more barren than before. Or when you destroy the planks to let the rangers in, they are also for some reason invisible now, which leads to some funny interactions. And when you decide to reload the checkpoint after the rangers have turned invisible, they're actually visible now, but now they're frozen in place inside of an animation. You can also find the librarian on 2 separate spots of the level, who is just standing still, because he's still waiting for his animation to trigger, and if you trigger his animation, he just disappears. We can also actually climb on the roof of the library, and from up here we have a beautiful view of the city of Moscow, But on the roof we obviously get a good view of everything around us, and a part of that sticks out a lot is this hidden room where we can find 3 idle demon models just hiding inside of it. From up here we can also see some of the distant landmarks of Moscow, with the one sticking out the most probably being the Cathedral of Christ the Savior. We can also even see the Kremlin wall spanning across a large part of the map, and in the distance even Ivan the Bell Tower. All of these landmarks do look pretty detailed from up here, but if we actually get up close to them, it's quickly apparent that they have a pretty low quality. But what's this part we can see there in the distance? The most interesting part of this level might be all the unloaded monsters and characters hidden on the backside of the library. For example, there's this army of demons which I can't figure out why there's so many of them, and also this whole army of watchers, which could be the ones that get used during a fight in front of the library. We can also find Miller and Danila's models here, and for some reason they have 2 separate states, with one being active and the other inactive, which could mean that they get switched out at some point during the level. Something we also get to look at more closely are the models of the Lurker, Shrimp and even the Librarian, which is really cool because in the game we never really get to go up close to one of these guys, and if we would, it would probably not end up well for us. If we decide to load into the next level in the library, called the Depository, and go out of bounds there, we can also find some interesting things. Just outside the library there's this frozen demon outside the map, as well as this librarian who looks like he's trying to hide from me, but it's apparent he's not doing it that well. In all seriousness, I do think this is the same librarian who we see get killed on top of the elevator as we go down to the basement of the library. And in the basement we can also actually see another librarian before the start of his animation. In the basement we can also go to a part of the archives level early, but if we go there during the Depository level mission, most of the things will not have been loaded in yet. In the Depository level we can also once again find one of these weapon stashes, but this time with different guns like the AK and Saiga, and of course again all different types of consumables and ammo. If we take a step back from the Depository level, one thing we notice is that the backside of the library is now much more detailed than before. And even though you barely notice them from the main part of the level, most of the buildings we see in the distance are actually pretty detailed. Not only are the outside parts very detailed, but also the inside of these buildings with complete rooms and doorways. I don't know if this could be a cut area we were supposed to go to at some point, or if it could be some of the buildings we see after we exit the library in the archives level, but it's still pretty interesting to see. The library itself sadly didn't get the detailed building treatment, as a big part of its structure is now completely gone, but there are still some things inside it that we can look at. There is this one pillar of the library that if we move our character in the correct way, we can actually use to climb extremely far up, and from up here we can get to some cool places. One of them being the floors just above the Depository level, where we can see a ton of Librarian and Demon models just standing there. I don't remember seeing this many Librarians the last time I played this level, but this might actually be the most random thing I've found so far in this video. Can also once again get inside the main hall of the library, which has now lost all of its details, but we can actually still find some dead body models hidden inside it. When I explored the alley and Depository level out of bounds, I discovered that you can easily beat these 2 levels in an insane time compared to doing it the normal way. If we play these 2 levels, we would on average need about 50 minutes to complete them. And with some out of bounds trickery, we can get that time down to under a minute. Well, with that we've come to the end of the video. This type of video making is pretty new to me, especially the script writing, so if you have any feedback you would like to share down in the comments, that would really help me. But with that, thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I'll see you in the next time. Bye.